Savanna villages. Hello everyone, today I'm going to be showing you the fastest way to loot a savanna village. So as a general rule of thumb, if you see a house like this and it is a 5x5, you generally won't get any good loot. As you can see, all we got from here was seeds and grass. Occasionally you will get emeralds and acacia saplings, possibly bread. Even sometimes you will get wheat. But as a general rule, you normally can skip them because they will look something like this. But occasionally there will be a structure. Normally the way that you can tell whether or not there's loot in is the ones with no loot will have logs facing outwards, and the ones with loot will have logs that are all facing upwards. So that's the fast way to determine whether or not to loot a village house. This one is the leatherworker's shop, I believe, and usually only ever contains bread leather. Occasionally you might find other stuff in there, but that's pretty much what you're going to find. As for the armor, you can always avoid the armorer's workshop. This one just doesn't have anything. You can even see just by looking in the door, if you see a blast furnace, unless you want a blast furnace, there's not going to be anything worth looting. This here is the library, and you are going to get a total of 8 bookshelves and 1 lectern per library, so that can be useful if that's what you're after. If you're on the move constantly, you don't need any of that stuff, you can just skip that. Again, here's an example of a house that you could definitely skip looting, even though it has the vertical logs. Usually the loot's going to be pretty bad, but if you're really desperate for emeralds and you really want to just check, you can. As a general rule, the houses made of orange terracotta normally don't have anything inside them, so you can just skip on right past them. Here's another example. We shouldn't have even had to go inside that one because this is just an armorer's workshop. There's not going to be anything of value in there. There's another one we can skip. You can immediately tell to skip it because the logs are facing outwards like that. Over here we have our first little tall structure, and it looks nice, but there's normally pretty much nothing in here, so you can skip these. The little houses with the little teepees on top, just go right on past because you won't find any loot in here. It's just going to be completely empty. The only thing you're going to find is a bed. Unless you're collecting beds, that's the house to skip. As you can see here, we've got another example of an armorer's workshop. The armorer's workshop can be very confusing because it's very similar to the regular house that does have a chest. Here we have the butcher's room. Nothing in the butcher's. Don't go to the butcher's. You can craft a smoker just quite easily. This one, however, this type of house, the double-doored house, can sometimes have a bucket and some emeralds. You can tell this is a good house because it has little banners on the outside and it has 2 entrances. The one entrance houses normally have a whole lot less loot. This one is another example of a house you just want to skip on straight by. This is a 4x5 house, and it has the 2 distinct yellow terracotta lines, meaning that there's nothing valuable in there. This is just another butcher's house, but this one does actually have loot in it, and sometimes you'll find meat in here as well. The way whether or not you can tell whether or not to actually loot a butcher's house is if it has a fence and it is elevated on these little posts with the stairs going up. Usually that means that there will be loot inside. If it's just on the ground, straight flat, you're probably not going to get anything from that. Here we can tell that that one is lootable because it has vertical logs. This one is a new structure. Now this one, it's debatable whether or not you should loot this. If you want a brewing stand, this house is invaluable because there is a brewing stand in here and you can get a brewing stand from this house. But that is the only valuable thing you're going to get from that house. So just weigh up what you need and what you don't need, and that will result in whether or not you loot it. This house, this is the red terracotta house. Now this one normally does have a loot chest, so you can go ahead and loot that, but the loot's normally not that great. This is another cleric's house. This one is a chested house with the little brown banners. Normally the loot in here isn't great, so if you're in a hurry, just don't bother with those ones. This one here, another example, just getting used to the idea that logs pointing outwards means no loot. There's nothing over here. We fly over here. This is a slightly wider yellow house, and this one will have, this is the yellow leather worker's shop over here, so that has some valuable stuff in here. There's another logs out, so we can avoid it. Logs down, we can check it. If it has a blast furnace, avoid it. This is another red house. This one, however, does not have any chest inside, and this is not actually a red house. This is an orange house. So orange terracotta house less likely to be a chest in there. This one has a chest. Looks like we've already looted this. We must be going around in a circle. Anyway, that's pretty much all the structures. I think there's one more structure that we haven't actually found here. And that is the blacksmiths. There doesn't seem to be a blacksmiths in any of these houses here. So I'm just going to really quickly fly around and try and generate villages until I find one. What is this over here? This is a strange looking house, to say the least. Look at that. We've got the brown banners and weird looking pillars outside. This one, okay, that's just a variant of the cleric's house. So this is a double cleric's workshop. It's got the little monoliths outside. That's just a cartographer's. We still haven't found a blacksmith, so looking like the blacksmith is going to be quite a rare one. I imagine that the Savannah village has a blacksmith house. Well, anyway, if there is a blacksmith house in the Savannah village, you'll know that it's the blacksmith because it won't look like any of the buildings that we've currently gone over. It'll look somewhat different, I imagine. No hope finding a blacksmith in this particular escapade of Minecraft adventures. Anyway, that's pretty much everything you need to know about Savannah villages. Thank you for watching and have an excellent day. Goodbye, and I will see you in the next one.